dog walkers. I wonder what gifts you all possess. I really do. Thank you for joining me in launching my first book, 5 Gifts, Flourishing. And also, whilst acknowledging your presence, I'd like to acknowledge the Bunurong and Wurundjeri peoples, traditional owners of the land here in Stonington. And pay respects to elders both past, present and future. My aim in writing this book initially and in distributing it now is to elevate the role of gifts, to elevate them in a way that they can play more of a role in our lives, or we're more aware of them. Now, I do so purely out of a spirit of having us suffer less and enjoy more, be happier. And I'm sure we need that right now. You see, sometimes the only time that we really explore gifts is in death, when we eulogise about people, when we talk about all of the personal attributes they've had. Because gifts are simply personal attributes. They can be skills. Love was mentioned. Yeah. Numeracy was mentioned. All valid. All valid. But they're an orientation towards a positive outcome, generally. So, my notion is that if we take a leaf out of writer Greg Levine's work, when he says that if we want to make a decision in life, consult our death, then let's not wait till we're on the deathbed. Let's celebrate our gifts now. Let's look at what we're good at now. And let's make an intention around having those show up more often in our lives. Let's live more out of our choices in what we're good at, or what we could be good at. Because the other thing with gifts is sometimes we don't realise they exist until someone points them out to us. Is that right? Or we don't realise how skilled we are at something in particular, the degree of excellence we have in that particular attribute. So I'm asking us to consider gifts as a reference point, but they're wholesome reference points and positive reference points. And the more we choose to let them guide our lives, the more positive our inclination towards life can be. And boy, don't we need a more positive inclination towards life right now? Yes. So 5 Gifts Flourishing encourages us to identify just a selection of your gifts. Okay? And in doing so, it gives you some stories and exercises to unpack those, to think about them, to check them out. And then, ultimately, a series of exercises to inculcate, I love that word, inculcate them into our daily life. To live with intention using our gifts. The activities are designed for you to take your chosen gifts, and a bit like those health reminders you get on your new phones, yeah? But a bit less annoying in that, they become personal and you can control them. And you can control the effort you put into them and the outcomes you get out of them. I'm going to read you a story to highlight the benefit of incorporating gifts in our lives. It's one of the stories in the book, and for me, it's a focus firmly on learning and the value that learning has had in my life. As I waded through the surging surf on Manly Beach, and Linda and I were there just a few weeks ago, and there was no surging surf, on Manly Beach, pulled inexplicably by nature itself, I was reflecting on the truly amazing experiences, I'm a learner, I had observed just yesterday. My colleagues from across the country and I had arrived at the final day of an intensive neuro-linguistic programming training course. Popularised by John Grinder and Richard Bandler in the 70s, NLP training became a popular basis for personal and professional development, with accreditation courses run across the whole world. Together with my colleagues, I found the content and delivery really fascinating. It really stimulated my learning. Arriving in the training room though, we were all surprised that the space was empty. And the training room was about this size. And it had windows all around, looking down onto the harbour and looking down onto Luna Park in Sydney. A clear room, but two short stacks of large sandstone brick next to each other, bridged by a block of wood. In order to demonstrate the technique of meditation and focus, early in the course, our instructors had shown us how it was possible to actually break wood with our bare hands. Has anyone done this in here? Okay. So I can make it up, right? Now, there was a palpable apprehension in the room as it was made apparent that we were actually going to do this. All of us. Yep. Break wood with our bare hands. One by one, my colleagues took on the challenge. Coached by the instructors, one by one, my colleagues did actually break the wood. Each time, the excitement in the room raised higher and higher and higher. I stepped forward when the energy was at a peak, thinking I'd mastered the breathing, the focus, the preparation to break through the wood, and slap. My hand bounced off the wood. Smarting at the contact, my second attempt achieved, guess what?
It's even worse.
Same outcome, although it was more painful this time. My heart was racing. I was invited to focus all my energies beyond the wood, to slow down my breathing, build my energy, embody strength. Tears flowed the second I broke through. And for the first time in my life, I'd entered through a door of true possibility. I just achieved something that I did not think I could do. My inability was confirmed by those two painfully failed attempts. But the result was, I did it. I did it. So I kind of walked through a door that day into a fresh future that suggested to me that I could do a lot more than what I'd done up to that point in time. As a learner, approaching life as a learner, I could do a hell of a lot more. And so I did. It was only a few months later, I was in training for my first half marathon. I ended up running 3 of them, and Brian, my brother, knows we've done many physical activities since then and achieved many things again I never thought I would be able to do. Community things as well. Volunteering with street kids and drug addicts in St Kilda. Creating a project for over a year and building one of the few adventure-based playgrounds that the community has built here in Melbourne and Stonington. Still up and running, still enjoyed by kids 15, 20 years later. These are things I never imagined. Chairing, as Elliot said before, and founding a charity in Scotland, the Men of Leith Men's Shed. But I think the one thing that really allowed me to shine through learning was performing. I've now performed in 2 choirs in 3 countries. Now, it's easy to perform in a choir when you're 1 in 100 and you're up the back. Right? Not a big deal. But when you're up front and you've got a sellout audience and you're singing with 5 Scottish blokes, Hold Back the River, that's a bit more challenging. And also when you're singing with a whole choir, the whole rock choir, at the Eiffel Tower in Paris, that's a bit more challenging too. But again, all these doors have opened, and through learning, I've been able to embrace them. Being a dad at home on several occasions is just one. Learning for me, and that's the only gift I'm going to focus on tonight, learning for me has flourished in my life, and I feel really grateful for that. And I know there's going to be more opportunities to continue to flourish. And welcome, folks, to the international digital launch of my first book, 5 Gifts, Flourishing. You've been viewing a segment from a cleverly constructed video by Dane Picken, recorded at my Melbourne Live launch. The montage of photos, created equally by the equally creative soul, Mr. Paul Eichen. I hope the story resonated with you. The full video will be available on the website at a later stage. Welcome all to this digital event. A first for me, and I guess for many of you attending. However, this is the future and we're embracing it today. I'll ensure it's both informative and interactive. I want to acknowledge the Bunwurrung and Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of the land here in Stonington that I stand on, in Melbourne, Australia. Pay respect to elders both past and present and future. This acknowledgement extends to all of you who joined tonight, from a variety of countries we find. Right up front, I want to acknowledge the love and gifts of 2 very special people at the hub of making this event possible and other worldwide events they're working on. My eldest son, Callum, and my daughter-in-law, Greta. Thanks so much, folks. Much gratitude. In the video, you heard my gift of learning and how I've embraced learning in my life since my mid-20s, way up until now. Learning has opened many, many doors for me that have surprised and delighted and been quite a challenge at the same time. Another of those doors opens tonight, and I have you as guests to join me and following me through. That I really appreciate. So tonight here, I'll say, I know it's morning in the UK and other time frames of differing times, but here, I'm delighted to declare that you will, 1, hear a raw story from my life. It's in the book, and it very much relates to how I've embraced learning in my life. And it very much synchronizes with why I created this book in the first place. And I'm doing now all I can do to solve suffering and create genuine happiness within my communities. Secondly, you'll discover and contemplate an interpretation that gifts can indeed be a powerful way for us to change, for us to transform our lives. Some theories and some ideas that legitimize this and encourage us to use gifts as a vehicle for change. You also engage in an interactive activity that'll help you get a sense of what your gifts might be, and then an additional activity that will have you look at your core values. Beyond this, at the end of the session, you'll get the opportunity to engage in some more networking, and you can do some Q&A with me, the author. Of course, there are many great people here joining in the event tonight from across the world. You get the opportunity to talk with them, share ideas, link in with them. I'm going to kick off with a story. It's in the book, and I'll actually refer to the book itself and read from the book. As an adolescent and younger man, I had no real sense of potential in my life. Already, I've shared stories of this that are evident in the book. And at these stages, I developed an openness for and an understanding of the power of goals and goal direction. But before I discovered this, I was caught by just getting by. Perhaps it was high school I went to, where violence seemed to be so much part of the school, you could be mistaken to think it was on the curriculum. At best, I attempted to avoid being a target. I held my head low, as some would say. "Welcome to Lindale High School," said the banner on the gym hall. Lindale was a reasonably new school near Dandenong in Australia, built to cater for an increasing population of immigrants. The big red letters suggested that this new school may be all right. I had arrived recently with my family, having spent 2 glorious years in Georgetown, Tasmania. There was the bush, the bikes, and ample opportunities to play in the small, friendly town. Everything you could hope for as a 10-year-old. Now, at age 12, I was tentatively walking down the main corridor of the school. My uniform was so new it was uncomfortable. "You'll get used to it," Mum had said. I continued down the corridor, passing banks of grey lockers and triangular flags. As I approached the staff room and the principal's office, kids and school bags seemed to pour in from the playground. I experienced a sudden pain. Falling to the ground and gasping for air, I'd been kicked viciously in the stomach, simply for being there. Yes, welcome to Lindale High School. Whilst I was never attacked so viciously again, my early years at high school were dampened by fear. This was not a place for potential. This was not a place to showcase my creativity and expression. We all know people whose passion for life was never present or has disappeared. Just maybe it's been our good selves that have endured life rather than lived life. My life started to open up for me beyond the story in my 20s, meeting Linda, traveling extensively, and as I said, learning furtively. It was in my early 20s that I started to discover and live through my gifts. I had a magnificent walk recently along Yeppoon Beach in Queensland. Yeppoon Beach just never seems to end, and the gentle lapping of the coral sea encouraged me to reflect on my life and my gifts over a massive 21-kilometre walk. Ample time to reflect. So here is a boy who, as you know, was beaten up at Lindale High School, just 48 years later, having achieved so many fruitful things. I could list several, yet my intent here is not to brag about my achievements, simply to say that by identifying my gifts and following these as a compass, delights beyond my wildest schoolboy dreams have now occurred in my life, and many more are possible and will occur. So, let's do a bit of a deep dive into gifts. Why gifts? What's in it for you to look at gifts? If I were to have the opportunity to sit with you over a coffee or perhaps a glass of wine and ask you to say what gifts you possess, I really wonder what answers I would get. I'm sure some of you would say you have gifts as a father or a mother or a husband or a sibling. You may be an exceptional leader or a skilled coach or a brilliant teacher. People may describe you as humble, as sporting, or giving, or just someone who can be relied on to get the job done. You see, gifts are not complex. They're simply attributes often defined as natural abilities or talents. We all have natural talents. We all have gifts. Again, what are yours? I wonder. Gifts can take centre stage when life ends, and we eulogize about the attributes or special orientations of the deceased. So let's take a leaf out of the writer Greg Levine's book when he says, if we want to make a decision in life, consult our death. I'll say that again. If we want to make a decision in life, consult our death. What is it that we would like people to be celebrating us for? Not necessarily when we're dead, but right now. We simply don't have to wait until we die. We can be actively living out of our gifts, living out of our choices right now. And speaking of choice, I'm sure many of us have reflected over the past year and a bit of our choices being severely limited, of our freedoms being reduced, restricted, of our ability to control our lives, our destiny of being limited. So here's an opportunity to observe our lives differently and employ gifts as a core filter to help us regain clarity, regain focus, perhaps regain motivation again. Gifts are positive reference points, wholesome reference points. The more we choose to let them guide our lives, the more positive our inclination towards life can be. And don't we need a more positive orientation towards life right now? The activities. So 5 Gifts Flourishing encourages you to identify a number of your own gifts. I've given you 5 in my book. They are my gifts. They might not necessarily resonate with you. Excuse me. The stories and exercises have been crafted to help you arrive at your own personal set of gifts that you would choose or are choosing to base your life on. The activities are then designed for you to take your chosen gifts and insert them ideally daily in your life. A bit like the health reminders that pop up on your phone these days, but far more personal in that you control them. As Adam Martinelli, who may be online tonight from the States, said, they're a compass for life. These stories, evidence, and activities are all drawn from my experience and results as a change agent, helping people and organisations to achieve positive outcomes. I wonder who in the audience has heard of the French philosopher René Descartes. Among the many offers he made was for us to learn about an idea, a concept, by considering its opposite. So we're going to take a leave out of René's livre and consider the opposite to gifts. Let's imagine we experience a life of jealousy. We live out of insecurity, perhaps anxiety and resentment. How useful would that be for us? And we've all known people, including ourselves, who have lived life out of those moods and emotions and orientations. Surely we have. Often it's not our gifts we focus on in our life, it's our insecurities, our unfinished business, our limitations. The reason I highlight this point is to indicate that we always have a choice here and do not need to continually play thoughts over and over in our heads, particularly negative, limiting thoughts, because our brains will do that for us and they're really good at doing it. We can transcend limitations and refocus back on our gifts, positive attributes that will open up possibilities in our lives. We can be kidnapped by our limitations or freed by our gifts. We can and must, as the lead singer of The Killers said in Mr. Brightside, open up our eager eyes. Open up our eager eyes. All the flourishings in my life have occurred because I focus on achieving them. I did open up my eager eyes and pay attention to what was possible. Each of my achievements stands on the shoulders of intention to start off with, sure, but also focused energy, ideally daily. Now, I've spoke for some time about gifts and an orientation. Now I'm going to give you the opportunity to have a chat with some amazing people around the world who have joined us tonight. I'm going to get you to join in with others simply by clicking on the networking tab, which you'll see on your screen, and you'll automatically be connected to another person. I want you to answer this one question, easy question. What is your most potent gift? What is your most potent gift? So folks, over to you. Meet some great people.